What was that sound?
It was yeah, it's
It
on
was like
vibrate. Yeah, it's on vibrate. That's
okay. Then we gotta take that off. That was weird.
Yeah.
Let's go. Keep going.
On vibrate.
It was like burnt.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. Over here, we have senses of humor. Okay, you can't be having fart sounds when you're trying to talk about something.
What's so funny? It's funny you bring that up because, shout out to Brother Rich and Black Magic 363. I was the last time I did a presentation on this. Somebody had made a comment like that, and I'm like, where are they getting that from? Now I get it. It's my phone.
It was like burn. It sounded like you're trying to be real serious. It was like burn.
Crazy.
All right, go ahead. So we identified the problem. Y'all.
Right. My phone vibrating. Anyway, that's hilarious. So anyway, the the analogy I gave about different brands of cars, right? We understand that we're just talking about the same thing. We're just talking about different brands of the same thing, right? But we tend to lose that when we're talking about faith traditions. See? We tend to lose that idea. And it's like, oh, well, now we're thinking we're talking about totally different things as opposed to different approaches on the same thing, right? Now, that's further exacerbated by the fact that we live in a Western society under a Western psychology, a Euro-Western psychology. Let me be very specific. What do I mean by that? In the present Euro-Western worldview that we grew up in, that we now consider normal, religion is not something you live, it's something you do, like a hobby. So even religion has been secularized. You get it? So now, of course, with someone like you who's an Ifa practitioner, you still see why people would say in the West, Ifa is witchcraft, or Ifa is magic, or Ifa is blah. You see what I'm saying? Why they would say that is because the narrative on Ifa and its practice still retains its old world narrative. It's not so much as a different thing, a different religion. It's a different perspective on religion. See? The old world narrative, right? When we're talking about spirituality or religion, is what the new world calls magic. Why do they call it magic, or why was it demonized as magic? Is because of the Spanish Inquisition. We could point to an actual period of history. See, we can point to an actual period of history, a time in history where the old world narrative on spiritual matters and other matters was literally terrorized out of our people and other people. And that was the Spanish Inquisition near the end of the 15th century.
Well, it's interesting, because I just got off a Side-Netters panel. We were really going into Adam and Eve and the whole story of the Garden of Eden. We were talking about whether, Jesus was the serpent, whether Adam was the serpent. And I'm like, okay. And actually the woman that came today, even the pod was like, really, it really breaks down into human anatomy, and that is really what African traditions are really based on. Is like, they're talking about stuff in parable. They're talking about stuff in this way. The stories are not like meant to be interpreted in a way that it's exact. Like, yes, Pinocchio had a long nose and this, that, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Little Red Riding Hood went to the house and the wolf. And people are not meant to believe these things in a way where you believe the actual story, right? So you have a story of Adam and Eve going to the garden, right? Mm-hmm. But this is really a story of human evolution and and character development.
Yeah, but now you know as well as I do that these are things that you have to get, like a ledger, right? So you have to get like a glossary of terms. Pinocchio really means da 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 da. His long nose is really referring to da 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 da. Geppetto is really, you see what I'm saying?
And you get into the Hebrew. Well, based on this language, it's saying that, and this mean that in that language, in Greek, and then the etymology of that is this, and so it gets really crazy and confusing.
So the fact that you need such a glossary of terms ahead of time, or a ledger ahead of time, so that you can make heads and tails of the story and actually get real use out of it, or get the intended use out of it, means you have to be what? Initiated. That's what it is. You have to be initiated. You have to be inducted with a particular worldview or mythos that allows you to properly dive into the story and extract out of it what you need for your personal development. See, this is all old world. This is the way it was done by our forefathers and foremothers.
And you know what I was actually saying? I said, you know what? These books were not meant for everybody to read. I don't even think that the Torah was a book that every regular person was able to be able to just pick up and just read it. You know?
Just what you just said, a master Hebrew Kabbalist said those exact same words in a very famous book called The Cipher of Genesis. I highly suggest, man, people need to have that book, right? You need to have that book. It's called The Cipher of Genesis. The author's name is Carlo Suarez. That's his name. He wrote this book back in the 80s. And he says, it's called the cipher, meaning the code, the ledger, you get it? Of Genesis. Meaning that not only is the real secret story unintelligible to English readers, but it was also unintelligible to regular Hebrew readers too. If you were not initiated, you were reading something totally different, even in Hebrew.
Wow. And the story was meant for children to comprehend.
Well, in this case,
level, right? So, like, because it sounds like a children's story.
But
so went up the hill to like fetch a pill of work.
Now, watch this. I'm glad you said children, because even the term children is metaphoric in this sense.
Wow. Okay.
So you're reading it in Hebrew as a native Hebrew speaker or Aramaic speaker. You're reading the story. You're reading a story. That's for children, metaphorically. In other words, for uninitiated. That's what a child is. See? The uninitiated. Exactly. Okay. Now, for the initiated, reading Genesis, it's not, follow me, it's not a linear story. This happened, and this happened, and this happened to this person, and that person, and that person. It's not what it is. For the initiated, what you're reading is a manual giving you the mechanics of manifest creation. That's what you're reading. You're literally reading a scientific textbook. It's religion, but it's science.
So you got to break that down. So you said listen, I went to high school, got a degree, got my little diploma. You're using college words. Break that down on like a high school.
So imagine you. Okay, here it is. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
When you get a cell phone, and you get a new cell phone, like something super new, right? What's the first thing you do? You open the box, pull it out, and you read the operation manual. Mm-hmm. That's what Genesis is to the initiated.
To the initiated.
To the initiated. To everybody else, it's a cool story. But to the initiated, it's an operations manual.
Wow. And so when we talk, actually with the actual thought that this is really about a story about how man developed character. So this is what I said. I said, listen, when a baby comes out the womb, right? Mm-hmm. So it says God put these people into the garden.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he gave them everything they needed to do to thrive. And then at some point they said, you know what? He said, don't touch this, but you know what? Maybe we should touch them hungry. Whatever reason why they did this. They said, well, he said you can't do it. So blah blah blah. Now, what happens when you tell a child not to touch a stove?
Of course, you already know what's going to happen.
They're gonna
And
touch
that's
the
why,
stove.
but sis, that's why that story literally terrifies children, and it causes discomfort in adults.
It terrifies children.
That story terrifies children. They may not say it terrifies them, but you're being told that you're going to be punished by God Almighty if you entertain an idea that's gnawing away at you just because they planted the idea. Yeah, it's terrifying.
God said not to do it. Mama said not to do it. Da-da-da-da.
Yeah, but you told me not to do it. So what do I want to do?
I want to touch it. So that's like the indoctrination. That's the initial indoctrination of do as I say.
Not do as I do.
Because
if it was do as I do, why would God put it there?
Why would God put something in the middle of a thing and say, don't touch it?
Right.
That's crazy. Right. When you think about that, why would God put something in the middle of a garden and say, don't touch it?
Right.
That's because he already knew they was going to touch it. So why would he punish them?
But that's only, but sis, that's only if you take the story on face value as it's been told. Nobody or very few people go, hold on. Who's telling the story? Where did they get it from? Did they interpret it right?
Wow.
See? Nobody wants to ask those questions because during the Inquisition, you'd have got your head chopped off.
Right.
All right. See?
So then we go further. So, okay. So then we go, the people get kicked out. What I believe is like, you know, what that was just basic human development from a child from adolescence into teenage into puberty. And then
well, here's what's so crazy, sis. What you just said, so if that's the case, follow me. Just indulge me for a second. Let's go with what you just said. If that's the case, going from adolescent to young adulthood and then getting kicked out of the garden, kicked out of the house, is that punishment or celebration? Is that punishment or graduation?
Graduation.
Straight like that. But why isn't the story told that way?
Because it wants to scare you into continuing to be.
Let's talk about it real quick. And I like what Scam Chan just said. I'm going to address that as well, right? But what I'm about to say may address it already. Let's talk about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In the ancient Aramaic, Hebrew, whatever, the word I'm saying it like that, the word mistranslated for good is the word tov, T-O-V. The word mistranslated for Ra, or for evil is Ra, R-A-A. Tov does not mean good, and Ra does not mean evil. That should tell you something right off top. All right. The word tov means to keep still, to keep stagnant, to keep unmoving. The word Ra means to stir up, to cause motion, to agitate. Now you tell me which one is good and which one is not.
Both are necessary.
But are you sure? When
it's necessary to maintain stillness in certain situations.
Let me contextualize it.
Okay.
When it comes to human development, which one is good?
Ra.
Absolutely, 100%. When we look, those of you that study astrology or psychology, because what I'm about to say applies to both. If I'm looking at an astrology birth chart, now you've got, planets, real quick, planets tell you what, the sign they're in tells you how, The house they're both in tells you where. But then there's aspects, either the angles of interaction of their rays. So you have some aspects that are difficult and some aspects that are easy. Difficult aspects, squares, oppositions for the most part. Easy aspects, trines and sextiles. Right? Okay. If I look at a birth chart and it has no hard aspects, no difficult aspects, I don't have to know who the person is to know I'm looking at the chart of a mentally retarded individual. Why? Because it is conflict that sparks the generation of thinking. You have a birth chart where there's no difficult aspects. This individual has had no avenues or opportunities to develop thought. That's called stagnation.
Wow.
So those who translated the Aramaic in Genesis from Aramaic to the Greek, to the Latin or whatever, right? And then English, when they mistranslated tov to good, they're saying, go to sleep, be ignorant, don't move, be stagnant. And that is literally the mindset of the Western world.
Wow. So the whole objective was to scare
retard
people.
Thinking. Don't think. You can't learn to read. Don't think for yourself.
So the knowledge, the biting off the thing of good and evil is really a thing of being stagnant versus moving.
The whole story is about that. The whole story now, let's take it a step further. When you look at the names Adam and then later the name Eve, they've been translated, or the narrative is projected for you to think that you're talking about a singular man and a singular woman, and you are not.
Wow. Okay.
The mathematical schema for Adam, we know, I mean, we see, matter of fact, in West Africa, right? Adamu, Damu, blood.
And if blood is stagnant, it's gonna kill you. You're gonna die.
How about that? But now, hold on. But see, blood in this respect, or in the metaphysical respect, is the medium that connects the non-physical part of yourself to the physical part of yourself.
So is Eve the physical part?
Eve, follow me. So we would say that the spirit of man is found in the blood. So Adam, in this sense, represents man's spirit. Your spirit, my spirit, man's spirit, whether you're male or female, represents your spirit. Your spirit is connected to the Creator.
Right. Period. Yeah.
All right. Follow me. Eve represents the soul of man. The soul of man is the medium that connects the spirit to the material world.
And you know
now
what?
You know why the serpent went to Eve and not Adam.
Well, no, they say he went to Adam first, based on this thing that we talked to on the thing that God talked to Adam, and that's what they were saying.
No,
Adam is a serpent.
The serpent went to Eve. God didn't speak to Eve. God spoke to who?
Adam.
The serpent spoke to who?
Adam, right?
That's not found in the Bible.
Okay, so I just was on the panel where it said.
Yeah, I don't know where they got that from.
They read it out of Genesis, but I don't know how true it is.
Serpent didn't speak to Adam.
Serpent spoke to Eve.
Right. Now you know why. See what I'm sharing with you all, and I suggest you get Carlos Suarez's book. It'll make more sense, more detail. Right? We're not for the initiates. You're not talking about a singular man or woman. You're talking about processes that happen in every human being. So just follow me. Because when I explain it from this perspective, as strange as it may sound to you, when we start applying this perspective, this narrative to the story, all of a sudden the story is going to make a lot of sense. Here we go. The serpent speaks to Eve. Does the serpent lie to Eve? No. The serpent said, God knows that when you eat this fruit, you'll become like him, knowing good from evil. Didn't lie. Eve, in other words, the soul of man, not a woman, not a physical woman, the soul of man, the soul of you, your soul too.
Right.
Which is attached to physicality. It's the medium between the spirit and matter. See?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there's what? A degree of attachment to matter with the soul. That's why the serpent went to Eve. Hold on. She eats the fruit. Now, here's the crazy part, because, the Judeo-Christian world, the Western world, either overtly or low-key want to blame woman for original sin because she ate the fruit. Right?
Right.
All right. Here's the question. What happened when Eve ate the fruit?
Nothing. She gave it to Adam.
What happened when Adam ate the fruit?
Nothing. They
Are you kidding me? That's when all hell broke loose, allegedly.
Well, with Adam, they realized they was naked.
Right, but why didn't
so that's the logical side. That's the logical side of the brain.
Why did that not happen when Eve ate it? Exactly.
Because Eve was already closer to God. I'm just saying.
They're not two separate individuals.
Right. Okay. So you think that it was an opening up? The eyes were open because one side. This is how I looked at it. Okay, right. So imagine you have a brain, right? And one side of the brain is already connected in a certain way, creative, whatever. And then the logical side is like, oh, okay. So then you eat something and it opens up that logical side of the brain to where it is connected now to the creative aspect of the brain. So that's how I saw it. I said,
well, here's something that's not covered in your idea. Why didn't they have knowledge of good and evil prior?
I don't know.
Why did they not have, follow me, why did they not have knowledge of Tov and Ra?
Well, because they were children, right?
Were they?
I imagine they were. Like that's what makes sense to me.
Who's the they? See how quickly we went back to the European Judeo-Christian narrative?
Yeah. But well, I'm just thinking about the child's mind.
Yeah, but again, we
I still went into they. I still went into he and she. Right. See? Yep. Go ahead.
All right.
I'm gonna be quiet. Go ahead.
So what exactly is it that we're really talking about here? Follow me close. We're talking about the descent, the full descent of human consciousness into flesh. Prior to the eating of the fruit, this was not the case. Upon the eating of the fruit, listen close, the human or the ego was fully and completely inserted into human physicality. So in other words, they became self-aware. They were able to say what? I am. Prior to that, humanity wasn't able to say that. We're talking about the descent of man into physicality and then getting locked in it.
So you know what? That's what it sounds like in E5, right?
Of course.
Because it says that you're over here up here, and then you come down, and then you forget everything, and then you.
Ta-da! That's the process. You got it. And how did I begin talking about a car from Bangladesh and a car from Japan and a car from Korea? It's still a car, ain't it?
Yep. Makes sense.
You see? It's still a car. Get it? We have to make sure we're talking about the right things. See, even Scam Chan says the real question is, why was either tree placed in the garden since they were not needed? Again, guy, you got to go back to you have to be initiated in the proper narrative to begin, because even tree is a mathematical energetic schema, just like Adam, just like Eve, okay.
Right.
Okay, the letter numbers, the alphanumeric, the names are alphanumeric formulas. That is the initiated perspective.
Right, and it's easy to like
when we say Adam is a man and Eve is a woman and the serpent is a snake or Samael is a snake, and there's a tree of Tov and Ra, that's for children. That's for uninitiated.
Right. Okay. And that's why he probably says that we're all children of God, right? We're all.
The first thing, well, in some respects, we're children of God. What are we when we grow up? There we go. In the Arabic, the word is called Khalifa. Khalifa means successor. Successor to who?
So is the creation story similar in Islam?
The short answer is absolutely. The long answer is only if you have the proper narrative when you read the story.
Okay.
You understand? If you don't have the proper narrative, then you'll think that they're totally separate, different things, and now we go to war. Now we have no understanding. See?
And that, yeah.
Now let's take it a step further. Adam, just follow, whether you believe me or not is irrelevant. Just follow the logic, and then you tell me if it makes more sense than the understanding most people previously had. Adam is man's spirit, always connected to the eternal. Eve is man's soul. It is what connects man's spirit to the physical.
So the soul is what's connected to, say it again?
The soul is what connects spirit to flesh.
Okay. And spirit is?
Connected to the eternal.
Okay. So you have spirit and soul. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, Adam eats the fruit. All of a sudden, self-awareness. Self-awareness comes when Adam eats the fruit. Why? Because Adam is your spirit. That's why. It's not in flesh to think or bones to reason. See? And while thinking is a soul function, consciousness is a spirit function. And consciousness is higher than thinking. I can prove it real easy. One, you can observe your own thoughts. Well, who's doing the observing? Here's another proof. Sperm cells don't think, but they have intelligence. Figure that out. See?
Yeah.
All right. So, man, or Adam is man's spirit. Eve is man's soul. The fruit is eaten. The fruit gets to the spirit by way of the soul. In other words, now it's conscious of itself 100%. See that? That was the awakening where they're like, oh my God, we're naked.
And the spirit and the soul is not even a physical, tangible thing. It's just
spirit isn't either. And the spirit isn't either.
But the actual body is.
There you go. Now, later on in the story, God or the Lord God, King James Version, there's difference between God and Lord God. God is the Elohim, the 7 creative spirits. That's why it says, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. All right. That's, we can go into that more later. But it says Lord God. Who's Lord God? That's the four-lettered word. The tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, which is pronounced or mispronounced Jehovah or Yahweh. So, right, we don't say to the uninitiated or to the public that Yahweh is, or the tetragrammaton is, a lunar deity. The lunar deity is responsible for what? The formation and the maintenance of physical bodies. What is the lunar cycle? 28 days. What is the cycle of fecundity? In other words, like what farmers utilize, their calendar. The lunar calendar of 13 months and 28-day months. When a woman is giving birth and they say 9 months, is it 9 solar months or 9 lunar months? See how this comes together?
Yeah.
All right. So, Samael, the angel Samael, as the serpent, tells Eve, the soul, God knows that when you eat this fruit, you'll be self-aware. In other words, the ego will be fully built into the body via what? Adam, Adamu, the blood. Samael is an angel or deity of the Martian sphere. Mars. Mars, metaphysically, right, is connected to what? What metal alchemically? Iron. Iron is present in the blood as what? Hemoglobin. And according to most metaphysicians, that is what solidifies the ego, which is why in the Old Testament it's forbidden to drink blood.
Wow. Makes a lot of sense.
That now you know why Tetragrammaton asked them, how you know you was naked? In other words, who's been working on you?
Okay. Now you're kicked out, right? And now you have to like.
Are you? Let's go back to that. You gave listen, your motherly instinct cut right to the end of the story earlier. Are you kicked out or are you graduated? Because before they got kicked out, what did Elohim say to themselves in Genesis? You could read it yourself. Behold, the man has become like one of us. That's what it says. The serpent didn't lie, did he?
So it really means that, there's no point in you being up in here no more. I can't take care of you. You got it. You got what you need. So there you go.
You got it.
You got everything you need to like live. And that's what happens with children, though. Ain't that what I said was that, so I didn't get that.
I told you, you cut straight to it. You cut straight to the story.
I said that's exactly what happens to a child, into adolescence, into teenagehood, and then you just say, okay, I've taught you everything that you need to know. Go on ahead.
And now the story makes sense, but can you control masses of people with that understanding? All right.
Right. See? So again, we talked about the fact that Ifa and like other African religions have the same concepts when it really boils down to the Ori, right?
Yes.
So when I talked about the same story, my thing goes all the way to the mind first, right? Mm-hmm. Your head, your mind, and actually all those things are held within your mind. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to really get into your understanding of even African tradition and how we have been misled into believing.
What we're talking about, sis, the whole time has literally been that. And like I said in the beginning, it's not, we're so accustomed to looking at the clothing of a thing. Ifa looks a particular way. Hoodoo looks a particular way that's different. Vodun looks a particular way that's different. Santeria looks a different way. You get it? Instead of peeling the clothes and going, wait a minute. They both have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. You see? In other words, we have to look at the narrative. What was robbed from us was our way to think about what it is we're doing. What we just discussed up until this point with the story of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis is we discussed the story from our forefathers' narrative. Now it makes sense. Now you're like, oh, well, we say that in Ifa. Yes.
Exactly.
What if we can apply this old world narrative to Islam? That's what the Moorish Science Temple of America does. And that's how I'm able to speak on these things and be a Muslim.
Ashe.
See?
So when you get into that, you go a little bit further deeper into things. You talk about like so life goes on. People start procreating, creating civilizations, and then at some point, you have people in Africa, you have people all over the continent, the globe, whatever. And then somehow we get brought over to here, and then so there's like this separation between us and Africa. And so then you have people that are doing hoodoo magic, and then we have some people doing voodoo magic, and then Ifa, and then we have people Hebrew Israelite and people Muslim.
Or we have people, right? And what's the difference? We just explained it.
Nothing, basically.
Well, there is one difference. Narrative is different. You practice Ifa. Do you call it magic or do you call it religion? Or spirituality? Which one?
Spirituality, yeah.
They're like that. Some people would call it religion. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
Would you object to that?
No.
Exactly.
And there's certain aspects of it that is magic.
Okay. Yes.
And what's wrong with magic?
But hold on. But by whose definition? We only say that because the Western world will say that that's magic. And we'll be like, okay, fine.
But what is magic?
Right. You know what it is? I'll use Aleister Crowley's definition because I love his definition. He said the scientific definition of magic is to cause change in conformity with one's will. But don't you do that when you pray?
Yeah.
All right.
Or fast.
All right. See?
And one of the biggest things in both of those things, in all these things, is fasting and praying, right? And everything, even Buddhism, everything is meditating on something and probably like withholding something from ourselves to eke out a certain result within ourselves or in the outside world. So therefore, it's all the same.
It's all the same. You see? So, but it's narrative. See, the narrative that we're speaking to now was terrorized out of the world, the Western world. It was this narrative's erasure out of our minds collectively that gave the room, and I'm just going to say it, it gave the room and space for European world imperialist dominance.
So Europeans have magic too. What's the difference?
Of course they do. They flipped and bounced yours. Go to a Catholic mass. First time I went to a Catholic mass, I said, oh my God. You know why? Because there was way too much similarity. The similarity was uncomfortable.
What are the similarities, you'd say?
Watch this. Okay, at a particular point, all of the members are standing up and the priest is giving them a blessing. He's putting his hands out, giving them a blessing, and he's saying certain things. He has gold discs on the gloves of his hands. And then when he gets done, they all go to the left and to the right. They say, peace be unto you. Peace be. Yo.
So Scam Chen is an atheist, by the way.
That's fine. That's cool.
He said
Everybody's
magic and prayer are not proven
until the knife is in their gut.
So he says magic and prayer are not proven and effective in changing reality.
By who?
According to what? Right, exactly.
Because right now, we can point to at least half a dozen award-winning quantum physicists that now openly say that quantum mechanics explains what we previously called magical occurrences.
String theory, right?
That's one of them. Quantum entanglement is a big one. See, all this stuff is scientifically proven. So when you said that, I said, yeah, by who?
So
you can't say by the scientifically informed in 2024. When you have people like award-winning quantum physicists like Maywan Ho, who's a quantum physicist biologist, when you have David Bohm, when you have Rupert Sheldrake, when you have John Rayhart, see, you got to read. You got to stay up with things.
So explain the
Yeah, that is my phone making the noise, by the way. I got it on ring.
That one didn't sound like a part. That one didn't sound like a part.
Yeah,
listen. So explain the connection between science.
Say it again.
Explain the connection between science and religion.
What do you mean?
How is it connected?
Well, let's look at it properly. Does anyone or anything have a monopoly on truth? Anyone?
Well, some people, no.
No one has a monopoly on truth. If it's true, it's true, whether it's religious, whether it's science. Am I right?
Right.
So if it's true religiously, it should also be true what? Scientifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
The war or struggle between religion and science was created by the very same people that initiated the Spanish Inquisition. See, our forefathers saw no difference between religion and science. Like it or not, the pyramids were built with religious knowledge, and it is what it is. Nobody can argue with that. You can call it what you want. You can flip and bounce words and be like, "Oh, well, the Egyptians didn't practice religion." That's a lie. Why would they have a priesthood?
Speaking of priesthoods,
Go ahead.
So speaking of priesthoods, we were also getting into the fact that the women were the first priesthood.
I'm not going to argue with that.
And that at some point, those things kind of got like, because, I was reading a book called The Sibyls, right? And it was talking about how, the patriarchal societies that were taking over, like, took all of your sages and all of your, diviners and put them into the catacombs. And so I'm like, okay, well, what happened to what they knew? Did they take that information? Mm-hmm. And then I found out that there was the Knights Templar and there was a whole thing going on. And so let's talk about the woman, her knowledge and how it was suppressed. And so now
let's go back before that. How did she get it?
I don't know. I'm still studying.
See, that would help. How did she get it? How was it that that women were venerated in the way they were? And who truly is the culprit in creating this male-female dichotomy?
Who is it?
Good question. Yeah, please. That's my phone. Sorry. Anyway,
that's okay. Don't be done. No, listen, we getting into it now. Let's don't even.
Right. So anyway,
that's just gonna be like an extra,
is what it is, right? Okay. Yeah. So, like, for instance, people will talk in a particular quick departure, but not really. Like in Islam, in the West, first thing you hear Islam, first thing people start thinking, oh, y'all suppress women, right? Turkey is an Islamic country. Turkey has had more than one female prime minister, so can't count that. You cannot attribute that to Islam. That is somebody else's culture masquerading as a religious tenet. See? All right. So this whole dichotomy, matriarchal versus patriarchal, that was never an issue with us prior to the point in time that I'm talking about, and that's the Holy Roman Empire, which, by the way, is the time period of the Templars as well. You see, so this is, again, we're trying to look at a picture, or we're trying to form a picture. Many of us are trying to form a picture, but we don't have all the puzzles for the picture, and we don't have the cover of what the end product picture looks like for the puzzle.
Right.
That's a big problem. You see what I'm saying? So we realize today that we have these issues, male and female, and this and the third, but we don't really have all the full information or essential information on how they began. So we have to admit that many of us really cannot put our finger squarely on the pulse of the problem. And if you can't do that, you can't solve it fully.
So we have a whole like a divide going on in America. Well, at least like what I'm seeing online, of male and female. You know, it's mainly like being seen in the Black community. I'm not sure how much it's starting to bleed over into other communities, and that's why you got like Elon Musk talking about their birth rates being low and this, that, the other. And
but you got to ask yourself why it seems such a big deal with us when we're not controlling media. See? What does that tell you right off top? That means
they're looking at what we're doing. They're looking at us.
No, it means it's being projected at you. Come on, do you think love and basketball happens every day, all day in the Asiatic community, in our community? No, not even close. But now you got millions of our sisters trying to live like that or wishing they could.
So they're like giving unrealistic views of how
all day long, man. The whole thing about us eating watermelon and fried chicken, that was negative propaganda from the 20s.
Prince Charming is gonna come along and like save you.
All of that, man. You know what that's called? You know what that's called when government agencies do that in foreign nations? It's called spycraft. It's called statecraft. It's called propagandizing a people. That's what it's called.
Because you'd ask, like, well, why don't no other countries have this issue? I'm not seeing people in Arabian countries and even in Africa, like being like getting online and talking mess about each other and da da da. Mm-hmm. I'm only seeing it in European and like American countries, like the woman need to submit. Mm-hmm. And what do you think that's about? Why do you think that because I know that now you ever heard like this whole thing, the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, and now it's the age of Aquarius and women are becoming more dominant and, you know, things like that. And then I'm not sure if you saw the whole thing with Fundi Fi. She talked about yin versus yang and how
there is no such thing as yin versus yang ever. See, again, it goes right back to narrative. It's not what to think about. That's the issue. It's the fact that we've been given an artificial way to think about things. Mm-hmm. It's how we think. That's the problem.
Did you see that live I did?
No, I didn't see that.
She talked about yin yielding to yang.
Nah, there's no such thing. That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. There's no such thing. There can never be such a thing. Can I prove it to you real easy?
Sure.
Do you have a penny next to you or a coin next to you?
I can pretend I got one.
Okay, let's imagine you do.
Okay.
Can you separate the heads from the tails?
No.
One defines the other, doesn't it?
Right.
Is it two things or one coin?
One coin.
All right. Yin and yang is polarity, not duality. Let me repeat that. Yin and yang is polarity, not duality. See?
Wow.
Our thinking is wrong. We've adopted somebody else's issues.
Wow. Okay.
That's somebody else's issues. Those aren't our issues. We've made them our issues, and we don't even understand them.
Well, you know, she's a Taoist, so, you know, in her mind.
She's not a Taoist. if she believes that. That means what, and no disrespect. Let me say that properly. There's no way in the world that our good sister could be a Taoist and think that yin and yang are two different things. No way. Because what I just said about yin and yang comes from the Tao Te Ching, written by Lao Tzu. There's no way in the world she could think that way. That means she's read some books, but it hasn't gotten instruction. And there's not a university on the planet that will allow you to go to the bookstore and get books on a particular curriculum and then say you have a degree.
All right. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play it so you could actually see it for yourself. So you can see what she said. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the Master Fundi Fee, and she was discussing yin versus yang. Mm-hmm. Hold on.
We have no idea. The only thing we can do is chart it. But if this is a yin cycle, Yang's destruction will not be tolerated.
Wait a minute. Wait. Exactly. Well. Wait a minute. You got to expound on that. Hold on now.
When yin comes to the forefront, yang will either be knocked back or it will subside back. Neither one of them can be standing forward at the same time. That is the even flow of the universe, which is why this red pill thing is coming to a halt, which is why those that were fighting it had to come to a halt, because fight is yang. And there's no fight.
What?
There's just what is. And what is doesn't need any of us to fight for it.
Wow. Huh.
Sisters, don't worry. Don't worry. For those of you who have decided that it's not in your place to self-preserve, leave your daughters alone, because your daughters have been born in the age of yin preservation, which is why we're seeing the shift from red pill, or what they call traditional women. Those weren't traditional women. Not at all. Those were social constructs that were put in place to limit yin while yang decided to express itself.
I hope you guys are writing this down.
Now it's time for yin to express itself. Now, the thing that yang didn't want to happen, and all of those controls were put in place for yang or men to express self.
Oh no.
All of that is going to come to a complete halt, because here is where yang's narcissism, or yang getting mesmerized by its own brilliance, yang cannot birth itself. Yang can only be birthed out of yin. And when yin changes, so does yang.
Can you pause for a second?
Entire. So
sis, let's go back to what we described, or what we explained about Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Remember, every time you said, well, yeah, well, he, and then she, and then he, and then she, and I was like, nope. That is the interpretation for children.
Right.
You have a spirit, don't you, sis?
Yes.
You have a soul, don't you, sis?
Yes.
That's Adam and Eve. What happens when your spirit and soul separate?
You die.
Straight like that. So, in terms of life eternal, do they separate? Answer? No.
No, they don't. No.
Thank you. Now, if we were to look, and I have to say the word if we were, and I'm following some of her logic, so to speak, because she's saying yang is man and yin is woman, and that is totally incorrect. Respectfully, but that's totally incorrect. Because to say man, yang is man and yin is woman is to say that man is male and woman is female. Is that true?
Not really, because woman can be male and female because we have both aspects of ourselves.
Woman can?
Women have both aspects of male and female aspects of themselves.
So men just have just male.
And men have both feminine and male.
Thank you. And that's my point. Because what are we talking about here when we say male and female? We're talking about positive and negative, yin and yang, which are what? Relationships of a thing. Relationships within a thing. A penny has heads and tails. Am I right?
Yes.
Would it be a penny if it had just heads? No.
No.
Would it be okay? You understand?
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. So when you look at it properly, you see the rest of the sister's logic fall apart. Because it falls apart. She's speaking as if yin can exist without yang, and or vice versa. See?
Well, she didn't say, well, one will yield to the other. One will allow that one to express itself.
I was listening. But that's it. But hold on. She spoke as if they both independent thinking, and they're not.
Okay.
She spoke as if they're two things that are independent of each other, and they're not.
Okay.
They're not. She spoke as if man is yang and woman is yin, and that's not true. In Chinese medicine and Chinese bioenergetics, where the terms come from, do you know what makes oversimplified, what makes man male and woman female? Do you know? First, let's describe the true nature of yin and yang. Yang is what is obvious. Yin is what is hidden. See?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yang expands. Yin contracts.
That's what happens in E5.
Yang is outside. Yin is inside. Do you know why bioenergetically men are considered male and women are considered female? Or men are considered yang and women are considered yin? Is because man's genitalia is yang.
Is out. And
woman's okay.
Is in. Yeah. Makes sense.
See? That's it. But you know when I know that I have both polarities, or else I wouldn't be alive, and same for you. So if there's such a conflict between yin and yang, as the sister was speaking about, is it taking place socially between men and women, or is it taking place inside of every man and woman?
Inside of everyone.
Absolutely right. That means the yang or male, and I don't mean gender. So we're not talking about sexuality or gender. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about polarity. A plug is male and a socket is female. A plug is yang and a socket is yin. See?
And they both connected create electricity.
See? So looking at it from that perspective and taking the wrong and the erroneous social narratives out of it. The conflict is happening. If there's a conflict with yin and yang, it's happening inside of every individual. It's happening inside of every individual.
Yeah, Brian, everybody has a positive and negative.
Everybody does, or else they're listen. This is the so what we call primordial duality. That is the foundation of everything manifest. If it didn't, that's the foundation of 3D, people. 3 dimensions. If it didn't have positive and negative, you wouldn't be able to sense it. It would be invisible to you. It would not exist to your senses.
So that's where when we get into magic, right? So we have like the positive aspects, we have the negative aspects. So I really want to get into your presentation.
I know, right? I know.
We can wait, honey. The whole live could be about. We went an hour and didn't even know. Didn't even know it. Like, right?
I know, right?
Let's get into.
Let's do it. So how this relates again? Hoodoo is an expression of African spirituality. Some people would violently disagree with me and say, no, it's African American spirituality. That's fine. I am not a traditional practitioner of Hoodoo. I'm not. I know some things about it. How can you say you know some things about it and you're not a traditional practitioner? The same way I can say I know some things about all-wheel drive because I've driven a 4-wheel drive, or I own a front-wheel drive and I've driven a rear-wheel drive. They're all vehicles anyway. You get my point?
Definitely.
So, there you go. And I'm okay. Here we go. If I'm familiar with the mechanics of its operation, I could speak to it.
Exactly.
Right? All right. Next slide. Hoodoo, an African American spiritual practice that focuses on contact with and traffic with the spirits or intelligences of the natural environment. Herbs, roots, etc. are embodiments of actual intelligences that we can communicate with and that can educate us. This is where Eastern thinking, in other words, old world thinking and new world thinking, have a major clash. A major clash. Right? So, hold on, there's something going on with my give me just a second.
Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button.
Got it. So that last point that I just made, where I mentioned herbs, roots, etc., are embodiments of actual intelligences that we can communicate with and that can educate us, right? Western world says that's nonsense. That's hogwash. Sticks and stones don't have spirits, don't have that. Okay. Sis, can you do me a favor? Look up a word called psychometry. P-S-Y-C-H-O-M-E-R. I'm sorry, O-M-E-T-R-Y. Psychometry. Are you familiar with the term? There you go. You see the definition?
I'm sorry, I was reading this. Psychometry is a term with multiple meanings, including parapsychological ability in a field of study in educational psychology. Psychometry is the supposed ability to gain knowledge about an object or person by making physical contact with an object associated with that person or thing. It's also known as a token object reading or psychosophy. In Star Wars, psychometry is a force ability to create called sense echo, force echo, or retrocognition. That's right. Hilarious that they're bringing up Star Wars, but okay.
Yeah, but you get why too, don't you? Right.
Yeah, I do.
All right, there you go. So there's an actual term for this in Western psychology. How about that? How about that? There's an actual term in Western psychology for the very same thing that Western society says cannot exist.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Let's continue. Provides pathways to the greater spirits or intelligences. And an African representation of what's called, the Western world calls animism, from the people of Benin and Togo. Now this, for me, there's certain things for me that carry great significance, and to others it may not be so significant. But this right here, this slide, especially the diagram on the right of the slide, is worth the price of admission. It really is. Animism defined as a category of spiritual work that recognizes and works with the intelligences within the natural environment. What do you mean intelligences in the natural environment? We're about to explain it. Takes into account, recognizes, and honors the spirits, entities, and intelligences that inhabit the natural environment of wherever one may be, and comprises a key component of what we call occult or esoteric genetic engineering. This is remnant of the old world spiritual technology of our forefathers and foremothers that takes into account the human psyche and the higher bodies of human experience. So let's take a look on the right here. The triad of spiritual reality. If energy is present, what is also present? Information. This is not hard for us to understand. You walk into a room with strange people and you read the energy of the room. Well, how can you read the energy of the room? There's information in the energy. We all know that. We all understand that. Am I correct, sis?
Absolutely, yes.
Here's the part that's going to take a little bit of a leap for some of us. The presence of information indicates the presence of an intelligence. Like it or not. Do you see the implications of that, sis?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. All right.
All right, next slide.
Old world technology and cosmology, the 7 planes of manifestation and the implicate order of quantum mechanics. Remember our good brother earlier was saying, yeah, well, this stuff can't be proven or hasn't been proven.
He says magic and prayer are not proven and effective in changing reality. Let's see.
Yeah, but quantum physics is, though, isn't it? Here we go. So what you're looking at was that 7 planes, worlds, or realms. This is how we teach it in our Islamic expression in the Moorish Science Symbol of America. We give names to those 7 planes or those seven realms. All right. In the Arabic prayer, the Al-Fatiha, the opening, right? Where it says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rabbil Alameen means Lord of the worlds, plural. How many? 7. All right. So this term at the bottom where it says implicate order. Woo! Verifies old world instruction, and it maintains that a pattern of constructive order for all 3-dimensional manifestation exists in higher space or higher dimensions that determines the order of physical manifestation. I'm going to explain that in more simpler terms. In your body, you have stem cells. A stem cell is what's called an undifferentiated cell. It could be anything. It could be a brain cell. It could be a nerve cell. It could be a blood cell. When it's been assigned to a task, it is now differentiated, right? That, let's say, a liver cell. Well, it's a liver cell. It makes up your liver. Well, what tells it to stay a liver cell? What tells the blood cell to stay a blood cell? What tells your pancreas to just be a pancreas? This is called the implicate order in quantum physics. Quantum physics. And it's maintained that is this order that is beamed down into 3 dimensions from a higher dimension. The scientist that came up with the term implicate order's name is David Bohm, B-O-H-M. Later it was expanded upon by another famous physicist by the name of Rupert Sheldrake. And then even further for biological systems, it's called the biogenic field by our Chinese sister, Sister Mei Wan Ho. See, this is science, people. So what we're talking about is an order of how creation manifests. And if anything goes outside of that order, what do we call it in energetic systems? Cancer. When you got a liver cell that thinks it's the liver itself, and now you got a tumor. It went outside the implicate order. See?
Wow. So that's what it's going. So in those cancer cells, they're thinking that they're the actual cell.
They're going outside of the order they were given. Yes. Yes.
Implicate order.
Implicate order. Look him up. David Bohm, B-O-H-M. Again, this is, I think you all know me well enough to know that, you know, I'm not just going to say something and say it. I'm going to give you references. See? All things have a measure of intelligence. All things. Yes, that includes rocks. That includes crystals. Do they think like us? No, but they think. We tend to, again, European psychology, very arrogant. Ignorance is arrogance. We think because it doesn't think like us, then it doesn't think. How about that? Next slide. Smithsonian Magazine published in 2018 an article, Do Trees Talk to Each Other? A controversial German forester says yes, and his ideas are shaking up the scientific world. Yeah, there's actual evidence that trees can recognize the clothes you wear. Trees communicate with each other and can recognize each other. How about that? Silicone-based life may be more than just science fiction. Whoa. Because life as we know it is carbon-based. Well, silicon, whoa, isn't silicon like mineral? Yeah, minerals, like crystals. What in the world is informing the quartz to form in 6-sided shapes? You should ask yourself. Why in ancient times, in our forefathers and foremothers' times, were crystals used like computer storage facilities? And why they're still used this way now with quantum computers? Next slide. Next slide, sis.
I want to show something real quick before.
Oh, sure.
All right, because this was like very interesting, right? So hold on.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna show an example of what you're talking about. Hold on.
Beautiful.
He's coming down and touching shoulders and all that stuff. It's just a little creepy, but we're gonna see if this is gonna work. All right, so hello, tree. If you can hear me, touch my shoulder right here. Hello there. Here, I'll move a little bit. Touch my shoulder tree. Can you do it again? Can you touch my shoulder again, tree? Hi, can you touch my shoulder again?
Interesting.
She likes my hair.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of art. There's lots of stuff on that alone. So, about what we would call other thinking things. We just think that thinking has to happen a particular way.
I just want to show that it kind of be creepy. He said, "Come on, not buying it." Okay, well,
That's
go
okay.
on TikTok. Okay, fine. All right,
that's fine. Quantum physicists buy it.
All right, let's go.
All right. So I have personal experience with this particular school of thought, the Buddha Gnostic perspective. So they have a Hoodoo perspective. Who spirits? Spirits of the deep, of the water, governed by the master of the worlds on the islands under the sea. The spirits of the old Atlantean priesthood related to Yemaya or Lokun, often manifest as frogs, turtles, fish, and snakes. The direction it comes from is the west, and its element is water. The dew spirits are spirits of the realm of souls unmanifest, governed by King Papa Nebo, and of the spirits of the family Gede, the Gede spirits. Manifest as cadavers, or dead people, oriented in the north, and the element is earth. Hoodoo is considered in the general sense amongst metaphysicians as what they call low magic or sympathetic magic. Why? Because the elements of earth and water are the elements most closest to our physicality.
And you know what? When you really think about it, they're talking about the water and how even like sound can manipulate water and things like that. So, right?
Of course, yes. What's really interesting now is something we've known for a long time already. Those that practice or that are familiar with the Yemaya, right, or Yemoja or Olokun, talk about initiations that take place under the water and how there are many portals under the water to different realms.
And recently they're saying that the UFOs are coming from underneath the water.
Yeah, we've known that for the longest.
Right. We knew it.
Yes, right. We've known it. Exactly. See? Next slide. So this is interesting. Old world Islamic correlation to Hoodoo cosmology. So in the red, you see something that we say in the Moorish Science Temple of America. What was the nationality of Ruth? Answer, Ruth was a Moabitess. What is the modern name for Moabites? Answer, Moroccans. Where is the Moroccan Empire? Answer, northwest of Mexam. What is the modern name for Mexam? Answer, Africa. Hold on. Look at the bottom of the slide. The Freemasons, this is very real, appropriated the phrase sons of the widow. Let me stop right there. All those that are in the fraternity called Freemasonry refer to each other as sons of the widow or Hiram, right? Sons of the widow. But Hiram in the Bible in 2 Kings, he wasn't killed. That's a part of the Masonic legend that he was killed, right? So he's referred to as son of the widow because of the Masonic legend. But the question now becomes from Masonic researchers, where do we get that phrase from if Hiram actually was not killed in the book of 2 Kings in the Old Testament? Well, here's the answer. All Masonic researchers worth their salt agree that they borrowed or appropriated the phrase sons of a widow from Ruth in the Old Testament. Ruth the Moabitess. Thus, now here's where it gets deep. Well, if Ruth is the widow, that means all of her children are the sons of the widow. Hold on. Why do we say Ruth was the widow? Ruth was a Moabitess who married, she married? King Boaz of the Israelites. But she refused to give up her national character. That's why she's called Ruth the Moabitess, because she didn't become an Israelite. Hold on. Boaz was an old man. He died during the consummation of the marriage. So all of her children were what?
Sons of a widow.
It gets better. In the Masonic legend, Hiram is caught during lunchtime. There's nobody else around, by 3 bad guys, 3 ruffians, and they try to take from him the secret word. They try to torture him so he would give up the secret word that all the 3 grandmasters had. He refused. He was faithful to death. They killed him. And the temple was unfinished. So you know how, like, when you're building a house, you have like a place where you put all the trash, the stuff that you're not using, a rubbish heap. They hastily buried his body in a rubbish heap. Guess where they buried it? In the northwest corner of the temple.
And that's the first degree, right?
Third degree. That's what we call it. Third degree. We gave it third degree.
The apprentice, right?
No, master. That's why they call it you hear people in Western vernacular, oh, he got the 3rd degree. That's where that comes from. All right. He was buried in the northwest corner of the temple under a trash heap. Well, who was that? The present day so-called African American who's called the dead man, Negro. See?
Man, this sounds okay.
The Freemasons appropriated the phrase sons of a widow from Ruth the Moabitess, thus the true and prophetic Hiram Abiff, who in the legend was killed and buried in the northwest corner of the temple under a trash heap, is the so-called African American in North America, robbed of his true old world history and identity and buried under the harmful labels, Black, Negro, etc., and the trash of the antisocial principles and stigmas attached to those labels. North America is in the true Northwest. Thus, North America is exactly where we find the dead people that the old Atlantean priesthood is now being reborn into. Remember I said I got a different perspective on Hoodoo? It's called the Voodoo Gnostic perspective. There's a passage out of a book called keep it on that same slide. Okay. There's a passage out of a very famous book called the Voodoo Gnostic Workbook, written by Michael Berdio. And in that, look at what he says. Many magicians are coming into African bodies or bodies of an African and European mixture in order to carry on the work of our order and to help the race to move towards greater enlightenment. I assume that many of our brothers, when he says brothers, he's talking about the old Atlantean priesthood, are coming or reincarnating into African bodies, since the African race has been chosen by the Mahatmas as the Vahan of the booty. In other words, as the new manifestation of the Buddha current. We may summarize our teachings, therefore, in this matter, as that the students probably will be brought into the world within the African racial context or some mixture, and that they will be born nearby the areas where temple work had and has been done systematically.
So are you saying that these are Masonic practices that are done in like these Hoodoo and Ifa, no, or the other way around?
What I'm saying is that organizations and institutions like Freemasonry are like time capsules that carry remnants of the old world worldview.
Okay.
And give indication, because when you know a pattern, you can predict the future. Am I right?
Right.
You know the pattern. they knew the pattern, which is why they can look forward and go, oh, yeah, we're going to see these people pop back up again in America looking like you and me, sis.
So, okay, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let you teach because I'm like, what?
Next slide. This is in further support of what I've been saying and what I just said just a few seconds ago. This excerpt comes from a book called Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tompkins. He's from England. It says, designed for the detection and the punishment of heretics. Remember what I said, the point in history where that formed our way of thinking today? Here we go. The Inquisition was used as a giant pork barrel for the enrichment of the crown, church, and inquisitors, while cheerfully eliminating dangerous radicals. In other words, those who had been taught medicine, geography, rhetoric, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and astronomy by Moorish philosophers in universities such as Cordova, whose libraries had since been destroyed. As a result, no Spaniard could write, speak, or even think without taking into consideration the fires of the Holy Office. As a deterrent to possible opposition in New Spain, 34 Negroes, including 4 women, were hanged and decapitated in Mexico City. Here's the question you should be asking yourself. Pardon me. What in the world does the Spanish Inquisition and happening in Europe have to do with Negroes in Mexico
City?
Well, here's the 2 things that we can deduce. 1, Africans were in the Americas in significant numbers to warn concerns about opposition to the Inquisition. Whoa, how did they get there? 2, these Africans were intimately connected to the social upheaval in Old World Spain. Wow. How they know?
Based on what I found out, I heard that they had mosques in Mexico back then.
They had what the conquistadors called mosques. I'm not going to say they weren't, because the conquistadors had just spent hundreds of years fighting Moorish Muslims in Europe and in the Middle East. So it's not like we can say they didn't know what they were looking at, right?
Right.
All right. Last slide. Hoodoo is an African survivalist spiritual practice to preserve and continue resistance to colonization, slavery, and oppression, integrated into the Judeo-Christian practice so that Africans, be they enslaved or free, could practice the principles of their ancestors covertly while operating within the confines of slavery and Euro-colonialism. Just like what our brothers did with Santeria, ancestors did with Santeria. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we saying? Well, we use the hoodoo thing as an example of a tradition that survived to the modern day, but still retained its old world narrative and its old world thinking and its old world operation. The reason you get so much pushback, sis, by practicing Ifa and trying to, explain it to others, is that they're using a different narrative to think about religion or spirituality.
Right.
That's it. And so you have to speak to that. It's like having children and they ask mom or dad for something, but you're wise enough to know why they want what they want or what they really want. So your answer responds to what they're thinking and not what they said. See?
Right. So they're like, but that's not what I said.
Right. But I know what you really want.
Right. And
I can see the flaw in your thinking.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
See?
And so, you know what? I'm gonna show you, because I have been like interviewed, because like my whole thing on my channel has been really about like trying to explain that a lot of the things that we're doing are like not different.
They're not.
And I want to show. Let me just find. I'm gonna show a little bit of this interview with the Babalawo, where that I interviewed him. I mean, I've interviewed several Babalawos, but this is the most recent one, women's role in Ifa. So
go ahead.
All right, hold on. Let me bring it up. Now, the reason why I wanted to show this is because I want to show, like, okay, the priest in Ifa are very knowledgeable when it comes to pretty much. I mean, they can talk across religions. They can talk. You know what? I want to probably even show an even better one. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Because this one's cool, but I want to show you even a better one. Hold on, because I spoke to the chief of Oyotunji, right? And he's very aware of Hebrew Israelites. He's very aware of all those different things. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go here first. Hold on, let me see, because I got so many different interviews. I don't even know when to go to. So just to have people hear what a Babalao sounds like when he talks, because when people like they be disrespectful, like they call him the Babaloo or the Boogaloo and the Bibbidi Boo Bob Boo, Bop Babaloo Baba Wop Bamboo, and I'm like, no, these people are to be respected as priests.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so to like call them by any other name other than the father of the mystery, Babalawo. So let me see. Trying to figure out where I'm gonna start at. Let's get into. Here we go.
Inspiring dreams, and when he arrived in this land, which was ultimately Yoruba land and what would become Ife, he fit the description of what the divination method or the Dafa said with the Odu of Ejiobe, their next king would look like, meaning that Odudua had a very different appearance compared to the Yoruba people. Right.
Let me go back a little because of context. Okay.
Really, our viewers.
Let me just go here.
God, meaning that spirituality was here before anything else. But from a spiritual standpoint, Ife is seen as our epicenter. Even till this day in Ife, there's an obelisk that really represents the point where possibly Odudua or Obatala, depending on the faction that you're from, believes, where the first person or energy descended upon earth, either one of those gentlemen. So that's what our theology teaches us. Now, when we look historically, you're going to hear a lot of different ideas based principally on the concept of Odudua. Being that Odudua was from Benin or Bini, depending how you want to pronounce it, whether you actually consider it to be the country that is present day or the other region that is also very antiquitous, that he came from the East. And because of it, it has caused a lot of people to try to find connotations or connections to Arabia, saying that Odudua came from, wherever in the Middle East and made his way into Ife. Based on the literature that I have and that I'm going to express on this medium, we're going to understand why that's been misinterpreted, being that based chronologically, Ifa has been around before anything. I have a goddaughter who actually is a degree recipient and doctoral recipient from the University of Harvard in theology. And she did her dissertation on Ifa. And initially, she thought she may have possibly been denied because she didn't really see the fervor and response that she expected from the panel. But she was immediately qualified. And afterwards, when they had a moment of a reunion, all of the people on the panel, all of the doctorates that awarded her, pulled her to the side and say, hey, we agree. It's simply that, it's not popularly accepted or a liked opinion. So it's not overly stated. But some of the most prepared academic minds concur with the same concept that Ifa is the root spirituality. I have a colleague that I was speaking with, and we were exchanging ideas and information, being that he is more based in the Isheshe practice. He told me that Ifa is as old as vegetation. And the reason he stated that, or his elders stated that to him, was because when, you know, vegetation and amphibious life started exiting the ocean onto land, it literally represented our ancestors. You know, I even saw a documentary recently where a gentleman said we all...
Okay. And I want to be very clear for the viewers. First of all, I would not disagree with anything that the gentleman just said. I wouldn't disagree. But let's be clear. Well, like when he said Ifa originated with the vegetation, that's a dope statement. But did the people, two things I'll ask, and they're rhetorical questions because we know the answer. Did the people at that time, if there were people at that time, call it Ifa? Two, were the mechanisms and the traditions used at that time the same ones that are used today? Was there people drawing Odu? Was that happening? We know the answer to that question, right?
Correct.
But we're not. But that's not a challenging question to challenge the veracity of what he said or the challenge veracity of Ifa. We just want to make sure we're not talking about the practical trappings of how it's practiced today. Because guess what? We say the exact same thing about Islam.
Right. And so that's why I wanted to bring that. Exactly. Everyone is the beginning and the end. You know what I'm saying?
Everyone
have this.
So let me go into let me just go into this right here. So how do I bring it up? Okay. All right, this is Chief. Listen, I've been interviewing so many different Babalaos and priests. It's crazy, but you know I'm glad that we're doing this.
This organization, that organization, and who's right and who's wrong. What's the goal? The goal is to be able to come together in a unified body and to have progress. Like I said, we can study the roots or we can start picking the fruits. We need to have organizations, we need to have companies, we need to have businesses, and we have to produce something, because that's what people are going to be able to do in this going forward. We need something creative, like what you see behind me. That's something which is being produced creatively. And one of the reasons why I put it out, I do artwork and I put those things together, is because we realize that these are cultural things that we can then gravitate. One thing is something of beauty everyone can enjoy.
So, so I think there should probably be a meeting. I'm going to try to connect you with are you already connected with Tariq Nasheed?
No. Who are we waiting for? Because we are the ancestors' return. We are the ones that we have to come together. Culturally, we have to become sound and understand the purpose of our life is not to be here and not to be counted. We have to stand up. This idea of waiting for something to happen. When in African traditions, voodoo, we are making it happen. We invoke, we call upon the ancestors, we call upon those who are the forces of nature, the air, water, and the fire. We begin to call upon the spirits and call into depth the dark vortexes of the world. That's what voodoo is. Voodoo is the active principles of living in life. And so when we're talking about our African sciences, Professor Smalls talk about our African sciences. This is our African sciences. And when we talk about voodoo, we're talking about studying ourselves. How do we differentiate ourselves from our own magic? And so what people have done is, in trying to become a part of different religions, is to separate you from your power and your magic, because you have been enslaved to think that voodoo is a negative, when in fact it means nothing other than spirit or power of God. And so that is what we then term as the word Ashe. We have different terms for that. The Chinese call it Qi Qi. They got all that, but it means energy, an invisible force. And then what we do is build our minds to be able to focus and send those invisible forces in a place, in a way in which we can bring about effect. And so until we become really committed to those things that is a part of our African past, we can never move forward. Like the Sankofa bird, look back, so that we can move forward.
So, what do you think about those space?
I agree with it 100%. But now, like I mentioned to you in a previous show, right? Are we going to argue about that thing that has a knob on it that allows you to go into one room from another? Are we going to argue whether it's called a door or la puerta? We're not. We're just speaking two different languages, saying the same thing.
And that's pretty much what I've been really trying to get to. When I like have been bringing everybody together on my channel, bringing the Hebrew Israelites, bringing you as a Moor, bringing like the Ephah priest. I really want to bring people together to understand that we're talking the same thing in different languages. We're all saying the same exact thing, you know.
That last Babalawo that you just had, he hit it right. He hit it square on the nose. He said, "This is not to separate or divide; it's to join and unify." But we can't join and unify. We don't move if we're looking at the outer trappings that look different, but can't see the inner guts that are pretty much exactly the same.
Exactly.
See,
and that's what it really boils down to, and that's all I've wanted to bring. So here is one other thing is now this is another bubble out. I just want to like give you some of the work that I've been doing on this channel, so you can like just comment on it. So
yeah,
which one are we at? We're at 1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's go to number 4.
Okay.
And number four is we believe in the multiplicity of creation, i.e., the angelic forces of nature or the Orisha. And I'm seeing things in social media. I'm seeing things in communicative circles.
Can we stop right there?
The way it is in the web.
We have in the Royal Science Symbol of America, in our expression of Islam and Islamism, we have a whole chapter dedicated to exactly what he just said.
That's what I've been trying to.
Let me quote it. That's okay. It says, "Behold, from Allah's own record book we read, behold, the triune Allah breathed, and behold, 7 spirits stood before his face. The Hebrews called these spirits Elohim, and it was they that in their boundless power created everything that is or was." See? The multiplicity of creation, the angelic multiplicity. We believe the exact same thing.
Thank you. That's all I've been trying to prove this whole time. Is like everybody up there like, no, he was a man, and no, it came in her first. And then he came around and he ate something, and blah. I'm like, well, what are we arguing here? It's the same thing. It's like, and maybe I'm frustrated because I'm like, and I don't even have to be in my religion like for 20 years to know this.
I'm fortunate in this respect that I can speak from a narrative perspective. I could speak multiple languages. See, I know different narratives, or I know where people are in that particular narrative. So I have the ability in many cases to speak to them where they are.
So when it really comes down to it, we're all like doing the same thing in different ways.
Our problem has always been organization. We're not outnumbered, we're out organized.
So what would you think that as right now? So we have like we have UFOs coming out of nowhere. So and we have we're on the brink of World War III, and
World War III already started.
It did.
Well, go ahead. Keep on.
It started. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, okay. Let me give you an example. But don't forget your original point that you're going to make. I don't want you to forget that. Let me give an example of what I mean by that. Back in the 50s and the 60s, what did gang fights look like? See? In the 60s and the 70s, what did gang fights look like? Your gang met up on one side of the street. My gang met up on one side of the street. We had bricks and bats and whatever, chains, and we just went at it. Do you see that happening these days with gangs? No. What do you see? I'm gonna wait for you. I'm gonna lay on you and I'm gonna ambush you.
Right.
In other words, the theater of war, of conflict changes. In World War I, people were still trench fighting in trenches, infantry coming out. Nobody does that anymore. People, we, through popular media and then just being soft in America, have not paid attention to how the theater of war has changed. See, the rest of the world gets it because they've been the recipients.
Right.
So the rest of the world wasn't fooled when they said, oh, NATO is helping Ukraine fight Russia. They weren't fooled. They're like, no, the way the wars are fought nowadays is proxy wars. We get somebody else to do it. They knew full well that's the U.S. And despite what you're looking at in the news regarding the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, Russia won, past tense.
Past tense.
Past tense.
So why is the America? Okay, that's nothing. Wow.
Understand? So yeah, World War III started already.
So okay, World War III already started. We have like now they're like finally admitting that UFOs exist, and I've heard people say that if you say the 100 names of Allah, that you'll see aliens come out the sky. Have you heard about that?
There's all kinds of ways of contacting higher intelligences. You practice it with Odus.
Mm.
You just don't call them aliens, do you?
No.
Why would you call them aliens?
And you know what? I was watching a CIA agent when he actually described higher intelligence. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, aliens, right? And he was like, so what are they like? And he was like, well, he basically broke down what we believe in E5. And I said, what? He broke it down to the macrocosm to the microcosm.
Yeah.
He says, you have things up there, then you have like things on a deeper level about microbiology, like when you have a virus or whatever, all those things are alien. And I'm like, okay, so he really didn't say nothing, but he said everything.
Well, also too, alien, we call foreigners that come from another country aliens, don't we?
Exactly.
All right. So it's a relative term. See, one of the bigger secrets as it relates to the so-called UFO and alien question, one of the bigger secrets in the intelligence communities is this. The vast majority of the so-called aliens that the intelligence community and military and other high-level government agencies and other private agencies have been in contact with for the past 60 some odd years, they're homegrown. Yeah, they're amongst the stars, but they call Earth their home.
I knew that. Exactly.
That's why listen close. That's why when a particular man in the 30s was teaching on this in Detroit, Michigan, on a chalkboard, who had a 4th grade education, the feds ran down on him and they didn't erase the chalkboard. They took the whole darn chalkboard.
Wow.
Shout out to Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. That's why they take it so serious.
What we're doing. And you know what? Another thing is that now you have Elon Musk that for some reason Donald Trump made into a person to be a part of his thing.
Can I share something with you? Can I share something with you about Elon Musk? And what I'm sharing is pretty much firsthand, because I don't know if you know, I work in the film. I've done work and still do work in the film industry.
Okay.
Myself and my brother worked on 2 of his sister's films. Her name is Tosca Musk. She owns a company called Passion Flicks, right? Where she makes movies out of these romance novels.
Right.
She told us herself. She was like, my brother didn't create Tesla, the company. His space program, he didn't initiate that. We just financed it. Just like her company, Passion Flicks, they're shrewd business people. This is what she did. The novels already existed, and the worldwide following for those novels already existed. What did she do? Created a film company to take advantage of all. That's what Elon did, people.
And let me tell you something. I'm not sure of how true this is, but the CIA agent that was on this one panel said that he was the one who gave us AI.
Very possible.
Not him. Okay. What was I watching? It was saying that the aliens came and gave the AI, right? Gave us the knowledge of the AI.
AI, okay. All right. Listen, again, narrative is so important. You said this before, and I've got books. I can pull a book off this back shelf right behind me right now that you, sis, should have in your library. Matter of fact, I'm gonna see the title?
No, I can't read it. What does it say?
Terrestrial Astrology, Divination by Geomancy, by a man named here.
Okay.
All right. Hold on. I want you to read the contents.
The roots of geomancy, Ramo and Islamic religions, Fa, Ifa, and Voodoo, the Sikh and Madagascar, European geomancy in the Middle Ages, the Renaissance.
Yeah. How Europe got it. You yourself know for a fact, and there's papers written on this, many papers written on this, that the origin of trigonometry, geometry, algebra, and computing came from mathematical studies from the old world west. In other words, out of Cordova and Seville in Spain, when Spain was ruled by African people. Guess what Stephen Skinner says in this book?
What did he say?
That Ifa is the origin. We say mathematics. You say Ifa. We say yes. Come on, man.
So
in other words,
so rather than like letting us, let's say that we did it, they're gonna say aliens did it.
That's right. This alien tech is ancient technology. It's ancient. Who would have thought that, you know, what we call ilm al-ramal, in other words, the science of the sand, because that's what West African Muslims called it.
Right.
All right. You already know what I'm talking about.
And yeah, and all Ifa is a computational system with a database that like you pull into.
It is computing.
Right. So, you know, yeah, like why would you say that come from an alien when it really came from us? Because you don't want to
give credit to where credit's due. Look.
That's the Odu.
Mm-hmm. See it?
And that's some other form of Odu. That's another way of Odu. Yeah. So pretty much like, okay, so what's happening is like a stealing underneath our noses of the knowledge and then trying to
somebody ruling the world with the narrative, your forefathers and foremothers narrative that they hijacked and then flipped and bounced it and told you something different.
And telling everybody, oh no, Elon Musk is the one that did it. Oh, he's going to Jupiter or wherever. He's on his way to Jupiter and Mars and this, that, the other.
The doggone tribe beat him there by thousands of years.
He was there.
How in the world you think they know that Sirius B even exists? And then he can tell you details about Sirius B long before the Western world invented the radio telescope and saw it themselves.
And you know what's even more crazier is that I've heard that when based on this one interview, it was like he goes into catatonic states.
Lucid states. Yes.
Musk does. Yeah, he goes into like states of like laying on the ground and being there for like hours, you know. Mm-hmm. And then he has like these bipolar like shifts of energy and back and forth.
Yeah, well, he's been exposed to some things. Okay, fine. But now think about what I read from Michael Bertio's book, Voodoo Gnostic Workbook. See, there's being exposed to some things and that changing you. Then there's being reincarnated in America into this world, bringing with you your previous work from previous incarnations with you.
Right.
See?
Man, you know what? This has been like an awesome live. We got to do it again. We ain't even started because this is.
We haven't, right?
We're just like hitting the tip of the iceberg on this. You know what I'm saying? Because I can really go in. You know what I'm saying? But you know me, I can't say too much because you know them people internet. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. But yeah, listen. We have a combined. I ate with the devil and drank with the Reverend. We talked numbers, and I told him I was 7. Cool. I like that. But yeah, we, listen, they said the same thing about Tesla. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, right? And I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam. I know the teachings very well. I give high respect and honor to those teachings. That's it, right? Elijah Muhammad in his teaching for his followers says that the European has, when it comes to mathematics, he uses the term mathematics, has one book to every 10,000 that we wrote. He only got a tiny piece of the science. Well, now when you look at shows like, or books like Forbidden Archaeology, and you look like shows at Ancient Alien, now you're forced to admit, yes, in 2024, this world is now barely even coming to parity from where we were tens of thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
This is not a slow linear
growing up from zero. Right.
It is a cycle. We've been here many times before.
And here's another thing is that, like, okay, so like then get into the Sibyls, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, you know what I mean by the Sibyls.
I know what sigils are. Mm-hmm.
No, not sigils, the Sibyls.
No, explain.
The female prophets,
okay,
of olden time.
If you go to Turkey, no, go ahead, continue.
That were actually taken and thrown underneath the catacombs of Spain. You aware about that?
Yeah, that's the Inquisitions. Of course, I know about that.
Right. So those were not like white people. There was a black.
Black. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's get into that.
That slide.
Like, what happened to their knowledge? What happened to what they knew?
We're talking about it.
Did they steal it?
Of course, but we're talking. How do you think the old quote unquote magical grimoires? A grimoire is like a manual, a magical manual, right? The very people, I'm not even going to ask the question, I'm just going to state it. The very people that wrote those and transcribed them is what they really did. They weren't the authors, although they may claim authorship. They transcribed them from earlier stuff and kept them. Those are the very same people that were enacting the Inquisition on the people who wrote it and practiced it.
So the whole thing of it was not just about the Eurowitch, and no, it was about like, no, we need.
It's exactly what I just said. We got to erase your way of thinking. We got to erase your power so that we can rise to world power for the first time in history.
And so that's how they got their power. Is they were able to find out who the one that had the knowledge is and throw them under.
Well, it wasn't even a matter of finding it out. Just remember, you got to remember, there's a lot of, like the history you just mentioned about the Sibyls. You know what it's missing? The broader context. You know what the broader context is? These things weren't secret amongst us. They were being taught in the universities. We just didn't call it Ifa, or modern history doesn't call it Ifa. It says it's mathematics. It says it's chemistry. But okay, you see? This was taught in the open. But
it was the women that were the ones that were the main scholars of this.
Maybe.
And then,
maybe.
Well, based on what I'm seeing historically,
maybe.
What I'm seeing is that then they took them and then threw the women
under. No,
they
murdered them.
And what
the witch hunts in Salem? The witch hunts in Salem, Massachusetts, was the same thing. Spanish Inquisition, same thing.
And then what happened to their knowledge? It went to.
Here's the thing. Listen. We're speaking. The fact you practice Ifa means that knowledge wasn't lost. The only difference is that it's not socially accepted as you can't go to a college and study, Ifa as a curriculum.
But let me tell you. But now what happens is that you do have a ruling thing of men that says, okay, well, you just can't go you can't go too far.
sis, remember what we said about the whole men-women thing, yin and yang thing?
Mm-hmm.
You think it ain't women saying the same thing? Loudly?
That you can't.
Yeah. Loudly. How you think Trump won? Come on, people. Yes. This whole I'm beefing with Sister DJ Genesis, and Sister DJ Genesis is beefing with me is thrown on us by somebody who threw the rock and hid their hand. And now we think we got beef.
Right.
It's got to stop, man. A big part of it stopping is us knowing that fact, first of all, and then acting like it.
Ashe.
We took somebody else's issue. The whole feminism issue was a European American issue.
And people and us saying, hey, like, you know, even asserting ourselves is not always feminism. It's just us saying, like, hey.
Right. Look up the history of Gloria Steinem.
It's a big difference between our feminism and their feminism. You know?
That's if you even want to call it feminism. How about we just call it relationship between men and women?
Right. Big difference between our relationship between men and women and theirs, right?
But we don't know ours. And that's the problem.
Only a fool taps the depth of the river with both feet, I share.
Mm-hmm.
This has been an awesome live.
This is dope.
And I appreciate you so much. You know what? I think this is great. I mean, you know, but lives like not mine don't get like 200 people watching. It don't matter because it's meant for the people that stayed. Because I've seen people that like looking at the numbers. I've seen people that stayed and watched all the way through. Thank you for being here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Yeah. Where can we find you at?
All over. You could find me on TikTok. Find me under Sifu Sharif on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, Sharif Anael-Bey. You can find me on Instagram under Sharif Bey. Easy.
All right. So, Sifu.
Sifu Sharif. Yep. On TikTok.
And then what's the other one?
Instagram is Sharif Bey. No, Sifu is S-I-F-U, not E.
Oh, S-I-F-U.
S-I, yeah. Sifu Sharif. Yep.
TikTok and then Sharif Bey.
Mm-hmm. On Instagram, yeah. Yeah.
This was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time.
This is dope. Likewise, I thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity.
One day people gonna like see what I'm trying to do here, and they're gonna be like, "Man, she was on to something," But it doesn't matter.
We're in love. It's the law of inertia, sis. An object at rest tends to stay at rest until acted upon by a superior force. Now we're right back to the whole Tov and Ra, good and evil thing. Tov means to sit still. And see, an object at rest tends to stay that way. See what I'm saying?
Right.
And so Ra represents stirring things up, causing motion, causing thought. See? That's the superior force we need to get things to move. Nubian Messiah, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside could do you no harm. Let me tell you, or brother or sister, whoever you are, let me tell you how we say it in the Moorish Science Temple of America, what you just said. Is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah? The answer is no. He is the shadow of our lower selves and will pass away. So we don't chase shadows. We eliminate the thing that's creating the shadow. See?
And with that, I'll say thank you so much for being here today. Thank
Alchemize your energy. Darling, let your spirit be free. Don't give up. Keep on pushing through. Now is the time. It's all up to you. Alchemize your energy. My friend, let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. No matter the storm. weather the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, we will always take flight. Keep on pushing through the darkness of night. There's no limit, let's reach for the sky. Shine so bright, from darkness to light.